Somalia is at a critical transition point. Insecurity. An EU-Africa Union peacekeeping mission, potentially excluding Ethiopia, is under negotiation. President Hassan Sheikh Mohamud's administration is pushing one person, one vote election system, despite a strong opposition. The international community, including the UK, is believed to be closely monitoring the situation. Will they impose their options or allow a Somali-led solution?
Indeed, for the opportunity. Very nice.
In this exclusive interview with the UK ambassador to Somalia, we will explore more on that. How are you feeling in Somalia? The weather, the people, and the hospitality since you are appointed to Somalia?
So I've been in Somalia for almost 18 months, and I'm loving my job and being here. It's an incredibly busy role, but the Somali people have been incredibly welcoming, and it's a very enjoyable assignment. Thank you.
Since you have been appointed to Somalia, can you please share us some of the most achievements you have made?
Some of the most
achievements.
Oh, achievements. I mean, I think probably the two achievements that I'm proudest of, not just my achievements, but the embassy's, would be with the UK's role as pen holder in the UN Security Council. You know, we achieved lifting the arms controls that were placed upon Somalia. We have managed to draft and get adopted a number of important UN Security Council resolutions. So our role to support Somalia in the international context, I think we are very pleased and proud of. And secondly, on the climate agenda, where we have been an advocate for Somalia's voice becoming a more prominent one internationally, to help the world recognize that the country has a significant task in dealing with the effects of climate change. And the success is Somalia's, but I think the UK has been a prominent voice in helping them get more access to green climate finance and play a more prominent role internationally. So I'm very pleased about both of those achievements.
Thank you very much. The UK has been supporting Somalia since the outbreak of the civil war, with a clear objective of helping Somalia for ensuring peace and security. Has this objective been achieved? If no, why?
So I would say there has undoubtedly been progress, but any objective assessment would say it's still a work in progress. There have been a huge number of successes over the recent years, but if you think about the combination of climate challenges, conflict, humanitarian problems, droughts followed by floods, I mean, any country would find those incredibly difficult to respond to, and it's the role of the UK to try and provide as much assistance as possible. So there's definitely successes in seeing an improved Somalia security force, improved stabilization of those areas that have been liberated, good access to humanitarian, health and education services in those places that the Somali system is able to operate. But of course there is much more to do, and the UK sees this as a long-term commitment with hopefully short-term successes and milestones.
The humanitarian sector is a key part of the UK's support to Somalia, with millions of dollars have been provided to reduce poverty. Despite this investment, why there is a little progress in reducing the poverty?
So I think I would point towards the number and the breadth of challenges that Somalia has faced. Through the support of many, famine was avoided 18 months, 2 years ago, which of course was not a good situation for Somalia, but it was in relative terms a success. The El Nino floods from last year were very serious. You know, these were some of the worst floods to hit Somalia for decades, and the Somali system its international partners responded very actively because of the very close working relationships that exist. And we are preparing for future problems by investing in those areas, building resilient communities, addressing the worst effects of climate change, ensuring that the expertise exists within the country to respond to some of those issues. I recognise that it is not perfection, but I think progress has been made, and the Somali people deserve recognition for that, but also I think the UK has played an important role.
Thank you very much. Since 2021, the UK government has contributed more than 17 million US$ to EU forces in Somalia to support the fight against Al-Shabaab militancies and enhance security. How this funding impacted the security situation in Somalia?
Yeah, so we are very proud that since 2021 we have contributed, I think, $77 million to the ATMIS mission here, also supporting the UNSOS Trust Fund, which plays a vital logistical role and provides non-lethal aid to the Somali security forces. And a lot of our support has gone on stipends for the 5 troop contributing countries that are here, so Kenya, Burundi, Djibouti, Ethiopia and Uganda. And it's very important that that support is there, because the African Union mission has been here providing a critical security backstop, while the Somali security forces has got better and better, and more soldiers have been trained in Somalia. So we're very proud of that contribution, and it's one that I hope when a new mission comes that we are able to continue.
And we go on the post-ATMIS security. The UK government has recently provided an additional £7 million to funding to support ATMIS. How this contribution help ATMIS in its mandate to ensure a phased handover security responsibility to Somali forces?
Yeah, so the transition from ATMIS to AU-SOM in the coming months is of critical importance, but we recognise that in parallel the improvements that are being made in the Somali armed forces is really critical to that, because this is about a transition for increased responsibility. We know that Somalis have sacrificed a lot and they are willing to fight for their country. The job of the UK and its closest international partners is to help the SSF get even better, so that that transition can happen smoothly and that there are no vulnerabilities that are left. And so the money that we are putting towards both ATMIS, hopefully AU-SOM and UNSOS Trust Fund remains a crucial part of that transition process.
With the AU forces set to withdraw from Somalia by the end of 2025, there is a public concern about a potential Taliban-style takeover by Al-Shabaab. How does UK feel as a key security partner about these public concerns?
So we have to continue to take the fight to Al-Shabaab. We have to avoid any ability on their part to exploit security vulnerabilities. And so Somalia, the federal government of Somalia, has set out a very clear agenda for how the transition should happen in terms of the forward operating bases that would be handed over from ATMIS to the Somali National Army. And it's the role of the UK and other close security partners to ensure that those gaps are not created, so that that transition continues to happen smoothly. We have to recognise there will be successes and setbacks. It is how do we respond to the setbacks to make sure that we do not have an Afghanistan-style situation happening in Somalia. And for the UK, we are committed in the immediate term, and the long term to remain with Somalia in that effort.
How will the security transition impact on humanitarian efforts in Somalia, specifically in the regions vulnerable to Al-Shabaab takeover? Will will the drawdown of ADMIS affect access for aid organizations?
I hope not. I mean, one of the key issues is humanitarian assistance reaching the people who need and deserve it most. Inevitably, that means women and children are the ones who suffer as a result, or the ones who suffer to the greatest extent as a result of conflict. And it's so important that we are able to, through our partners, whether that is Somali agencies or NGOs that are working here, are able to reach every corner of Somalia. The international community was able to do that after the El Nino floods, because many parts of Jubaland, Southwest state were affected, and I hope that we can maintain that access should it be required, whether it is for urgent healthcare services or to address food insecurity problems. That is a very critical part of the UK's humanitarian agenda here in Somalia.
What will be the role of the international partners, including the UK and the UN, in supporting Somali's security after ADMIS drawdown troops? Will be there an increase in military aid, advisory support, or counter-terrorism operations?
So, for the UK's perspective, we would anticipate continuing to do training of Somali armed forces. So we have a training team in the UK that does that. We have a big advisory capacity. So we have a lot of UK expert military planners and advisors working in ATMIS, UNSOS, UNSOM with the Ministry of Defence here, and I would anticipate that will continue. We are not involved in the frontline effort, but as I described earlier, a lot of our support is to aid the logistics and the non-lethal aid that reaches those who are on the front line. And in terms of our approach going forward, it's dependent on what UK government ministers decide in the long term. But I think the UK will still be a very active partner as ATMIS draws down and the AU-SOM mission enters, and whatever happens once the AU-SOM mission departs, and more of the onus for security responsibility rests on the shoulders of the SNA, the Somali Police Force, civilian agencies, I hope and anticipate that the UK will continue to be a supporter in those areas. But those will be areas around capacity building, training, helping ensure that international humanitarian law, human rights conditions are respected. All of those aspects that we have been already supporting Somalia on, we will, I think, continue to be.
Thank you very much. As a new African Union mission looms, AU SOM, Somali government said Ethiopia will not be part of, and there is some reports saying the international partners are pressuring Somali government to allow Ethiopia to contribute or to be part of the new EU mission. So what is the position of UK government?
So we recognise the tension that exists between Somalia and Ethiopia as a result of the signing of the MOU between Ethiopia and Somaliland on the 1st of January. And we are very keen for a diplomatic solution to be found, and we recognise the efforts that other international partners have been playing in this sphere, specifically Kenya and Turkey. And we need to find a solution to this problem, because Ethiopia, as a neighbouring country which has performed an important role in ATMIS, we want to see them continue if it is possible, but that is a decision for the federal government of Somalia, and the position of the UK is trying to find a solution that means the troop contributing countries that become the TPNs in the future can take the best possible services and support from African Union members to ensure Somalia's ongoing security, and that the transition is a smooth one. So we need to try and reduce the tension, support diplomatic efforts that are underway to find a solution.
Thank you very much, Mr. We will go to another section of our interview, and that is the UK support for Southwest State. And the UK has provided support to Southwest State in Somalia through various initiatives designed to enhance governance, security, humanitarian, and economic development. What are the strategic purpose of the such support to Southwest State by the UK government?
So again, we are very pleased, proud to be an active partner in Southwest State, which is such an important federal member state in Somalia. A lot of our programs that touch on particular FMSs are very active in Southwest. So whether they are linked to healthcare, we have a Better Health Lives project, we have a Gashan project, we've got on the climate and humanitarian side building resilient communities project. We've done a lot in education, where the global programs that we have, the Global Programme for Education has recruited a lot of teachers that are already working in Southwest and in Baidoa, and more are on their way, and we're very pleased that examinations happen for the first time in many years by a number of districts in Southwest. So we're very active on a lot of those health, education, humanitarian programs. We're also very focused on the productive economic front, where we're trying to support both the federal government and Southwest to be able to start to generate more income through a customs tax system which has been put in place with support of the UK, the World Bank and other partners. And of course you will be well aware that there is a UK military training team in Baidoa that for several years has been training Somali soldiers, leaders, commanders, doing specific training in counter IED and the medical side. So it is a very multifaceted range of programs that we have delivered locally through implementing partners, through the government of Southwest State and through NGOs and through our own direct resources that we are proud to have helped. Of course, what we would like to see happen is more of our programs reaching more of the people across the state, not just in certain pockets when there are problems or when security conditions allow it. And that, I think, is the ambition of the UK, to go to the next stage alongside the FGS and the government of Southwest.
But the question is asking many Somali people is the multiple projects the UK government is doing in Southwest State, is the key objective is ensuring security and defeating Al-Shabaab. Many towns in Southwest State are under blockade of Al-Shabaab. So what UK government will do to overcome that cities by Al-Shabaab blockade?
Well, I think it is about on the counter-terrorism front, there is a very broad range of objectives that the Office of National Security and the FGS has set out, and the UK is an active supporter and contributor to a number of issues, such as countering the financing of terrorism, supporting strategic communications and other pillars of that activity which have a positive impact, because it is not just about defeating Al-Shabaab on the battleground, it's about reducing their access to finance, it's about squeezing their leadership, it's about encouraging those people who have chosen to fight for Al-Shabaab to see that there is another better way, and using all means to persuade them to do so. So there is an active approach from the UK to support the federal government and therefore the government of Southwest's countering Al-Shabaab effort. But also it's about all of the other things that I described in terms of supporting the Somali Armed Forces, helping ATMIS and therefore AUSOM become more successful, and delivering good projects on the ground. Because if the people of Southwest, if the people of Baidoa see what good education, good healthcare, good essential services means, and good governance means, then it will, I think, encourage them to want more of that, and to see that Al-Shabaab is not the answer. The answer is to support their local community, their local government and their federal government to be able to deliver even more of that with international partners that are beside them.
On humanitarian issue, Southwest State hosts one of the most IDBs in Somalia. and there is a much needs. So, well, what UK will government do? I mean, what UK government will do to answer or to give these IDBs?
Yeah, I recognise that there are a very large number of displaced people who are living in and around Baidoa, just like they are in Mogadishu and Kismayo too. And it's very important that essential services reach those individuals, particularly, you know, individuals who may have the prospect of being able to return home. So a lot of the work that the UK does through UN agencies, working with other international partners, of course with the Somali system, whether it is SODMA, whether it is the federal government ministries or Southwest ministries, it needs to be a very joined up, holistic, coordinated response to being able to deliver more services. My worry is that the need is so great and the ability to raise the finances that are required is so enormous when there are many other challenges in Somalia elsewhere and in the region and further afield, means that we are going to need to be able to make the right choices about where the greatest level of need exists. How do we support that? But I have seen it for myself. I have flown into Baidoa several times and I've seen the number of displaced people, and my heart goes out to those individuals, those families. We need to find a way to offer greater levels of support to them.
On climate change, Southwest State is one of the areas in Somalia who have the most affected. So what UK government is planning to support Southwest State in terms of climate change?
Yeah, so I think the two biggest things I can tell you, which are just, I think they illustrate what the government of Somalia is trying to do across the board and what their international partners are trying to help with. One is, at an international level, access to much greater levels of green climate finance. So the GCF announced earlier this year $100 million to come to Somalia. I mean, in fact, it is in the press just today that the GCF, I think, has approved a project of $80 or $90 million that the FAO, the Food and Agricultural Office, will deliver in Somalia. That is a really big project, and the UK, I'm proud to say, is very much behind that. The importance, of course, is how is that delivered at a local level to make impact. Some of these are about adapting Somalia's economy to deal with climate change in the long term, because we will not see overnight miracles, but it's also about delivering in the short term. So I think that is very good news. From a UK specific perspective, I mentioned some of the existing programs. Building resilient communities is one that has already had positive impact in Baidoa, but I hope we will have a new program which is called Green Urban Growth, where we are trying to help urban households deal with the effects of climate change and help them establish themselves, and that will definitely have a benefit to Baidoa, to the existing residents of Baidoa, as well as the IDPs that are in and around the city. Again, I cannot promise that this will deliver overnight change to everybody, but I think it demonstrates the kind of UK commitment now and in the future.
On politics, there is a very tense situation in Southwest State, with the opposition is complaining about the lack of democracy and authoritarian rule. What role can the UK play to ensure a free and fair elections in Southwest State, since the UK is supporting the administration on many aspects?
Yeah, so I think we are big supporters of increased democratization in Somalia at elections. So moving away from the old style indirect elections, which are decided by very small numbers of people, towards eventually one person, one vote. The UK is a supporter of that. That takes a lot of technical expertise, a lot of time and a lot of money. So we recognise that the NCC is moving in that direction, but we also have sympathy with the people who want to exercise their democratic right, and the political campaigners on whichever side or area of the political spectrum they are, that they wish to stand in elections, they wish to compete, they wish to be able to take on existing politicians, and existing politicians want to have their mandate in place. So it is a very difficult situation that requires consensus building, a very clear agenda, and the UK supports those efforts and will, I think, through our existing support and future support, want to try and put in financially towards increased democratization. The key is how that happens, the time frame that happens in, and the way that brings people together, that does not lead to delays that end up causing increased problems that the democratization agenda can address.
On Somalia and Somaliland talks, Somalia and Somaliland have engaged in frequently talks aimed at resolving their long-standing differences. Unfortunately, these talks fell into a deadlock since Ethiopia and Somaliland signed a controversial MOU. Did the UK try any efforts to bring the two sides to the table for negotiation? If yes, can you tell us any progress? If not, why?
So, as I have stated many times, it is for Somalia and Somaliland to decide their future dialogue and arrangements. The UK supports the territorial integrity and unity and sovereignty of Somalia. So it is for the Somali people and the Somali government and their representatives to decide that. Of course, the UK has a huge Somali diaspora in the UK, very significant equities here. So we would like to see anything that will bring dialogue forward, and we support the activities to try and make that happen. It is unfortunate that tensions have been high as a result of the MOU. Let us see what happens in terms of the efforts I described earlier to resolve that situation. We also, of course, have elections in Somaliland very soon. The UK hopes very much for a free, transparent process, and whatever government comes into office, whether it is the existing one or a different one, maybe that provides an opportunity for dialogue. We will see, but we must try and find a way to build bridges so that we can move forward.
On Somaliland elections, what is your message you are sending to Somaliland people on the upcoming election?
Well, our focus has been basically supporting the Electoral Commission to deliver as free, transparent and fair an election process as possible, and that is the key. I mean, obviously they're in the pre-election campaign now, so we should let those political parties that are competing, those presidential candidates that are campaigning to go through their process, and let us see where we are on the 14th of November. But the UK focus has been on supporting the electoral process and making that as impressive and successful an event as possible.
On press issue in Somalia, how can you describe how Somali media is working as one of the dangerous countries to be a journalist in Somalia?
You asked about this? Yes, I mean, I think this is a very lively, active media landscape. I can see that when you check on social media, there is plenty going on. So Somalis seem to be very active social media users, and we are big supporters of the various journalists associations, and of course media freedom is a very critical element of any state building agenda. So we know there are legislative plans in place, right to information bills. We attend a lot of the kind of journalistic association events that take place. I'm very happy to be talking to Arlaadi today, and would like to increase the media engagement I have. I think we recognise that in a very febrile atmosphere where there are lots of security, humanitarian, political issues at stake, that responsible, accurate reporting and avoidance of fake news is hugely problematic, and conspiracy theories. And where you have Shabab that has a propaganda machine that manages to reach a lot of people, there is a big task. But I think I'm encouraged to see the number of young Somalis who want to enter into the debate, and indeed young Somalis who are journalists. It's very nice that you look like you're a young Somali, not a and elderly Somalis, so you should encourage more of your peers to take up journalism as a career.
Thank you. Somali Council of approved a media council, which some of the media organizations are opposed due to of lack of participating independent media houses, and they issued many press releases. They say in this media council is illegitimate or is illegal. So, will you take part in any efforts to settle this issue between Somali government and the press media involving the media council?
So the federal government of Somalia knows that the UK takes media freedom very seriously. I talk to the Ministry of Information, to presidential Prime Minister advisors all of the time. I think we are pleased that this is a very vibrant media in this country. Can the landscape improve further? Of course, and the UK will be supportive of those efforts, and we will continue to talk to the decision makers who are writing the legislation, and indeed the practitioners who are working in the sector, to try and ensure a media landscape that is as open and free and responsible and accurate as possible.
We move on geopolitics in the region. The Horn of Africa region has been experiencing crisis that is triggered by tensions between Somalia and Ethiopia over the issues related to MOU with Somaliland. How could the current situation affect the hard-gained progress in Somalia?
So I think the key is back to the answer I gave earlier. It is about dialogue to find a solution. The only way of resolving this is by the key parties talking to each other. We support the efforts that have taken place already, and we hope that they can resume soon. And we would call on the parties to hopefully ensure that public statements that are made are responsible in nature and allow for the space for dialogue to widen and be created, because that is the most important aspect of the situation, so that we avoid any further tension and make the chances of success towards a lasting solution as high as possible.
Somalia, Eritrea and Egypt have signed an agreement related to security cooperation, which can be a force against Ethiopia, and any action from Ethiopia could result a regional war. What is UK's plan to convince these parties to avoid hostility and prevent regional war?
So it's the decision of the federal government of Somalia who its security partners are. You will have seen that President Hassan Sheikh has just done a tour of some regional capitals, and that is a very important aspect of the security transition. He is talking to a lot of countries and a lot of partners all of the time, and I think the key is, how do we do this in a way that helps Somalia take the fight to Al-Shabaab, ensure that the security transition is as smooth as possible, and that the SNA gets better and better, as we all are supporting and seeing, in a way that deals with that transition, so that when the African Union mission starts to draw down and leave eventually, that the Somali security forces are in the best possible position to handle exclusively Somalia's security. So I think it's inevitable that partners in the region are talking all the time. The key is for us to ensure that the battle is against Shabaab, and that they feel the pressure of Somalia's efforts and its supporters' efforts, and that is what the UK is focused on.
Given Somalia's ongoing need for support, especially the Southwest state, do you think that the time has come for the UK to shift its assistance towards fostering sustainability development and a long-term growth in Somalia?
So our objective, our desire, is that more of the UK's focus goes towards helping the Somali economy grow and prosperity to reach many, many more people, and stability to be sustained. That is the aspiration we know of the of His Excellency President Hassan Sheikh, and I think it would be the aspiration of any political figure and any government leader, federal or FMS. And so, but we recognise that can only happen with security, and it can only happen when the worst effects of climate change are addressed. So of course, I think all international partners, indeed the Somalis themselves, would prefer less effort, money and time to be spent on the security sector and more to be spent on how do we help the economy to grow, how do we encourage the incredible Somali enterprising nature to be able to invest more in the country, how do we support more investment into sectors that don't normally get that investment. Those are the areas where we are starting to see some green shoots, but how do we make that momentum become much greater? That is the key, but of course it can only come if Al-Shabaab is degraded and defeated and a long-term solution is put in place and more of Somalia's land comes under the control of the federal government and the security agencies. And then of course I am absolutely certain that the federal government of Somalia would want to focus much more of its attention on those issues around development, health, education, services, growing the local economy, growing the national economy. Those are the long-term aspirations of the government and its closest supporters, of which I count the UK as one, wants to put our focus to that. It will not, let me say, it will not be a straightforward, linear approach of success. There will always be setbacks, some successes. That has happened in my country over many hundreds of years. It happens in everybody's country. So we recognise there will be challenges along the way. It is how we overcome those challenges that will produce the best possible outcomes.
And thank you for talking to Arlaadi.
Thank you very much indeed for the opportunity. Very nice talking to you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.